If internet security is not mainstream, then it's got to be pretty close to mainstream. Every day, if not every week, there's new headlines about hackers breaking into some system, whether it's a government or a company. And internet security touched everybody's lives. Everybody's had an online account taken over, their computer infected with viruses. And I think now people are, and companies and governments are screaming for answers. Mobile devices present two very interesting challenges. One is that there's a lot of them, and there's a lot of them connected to the internet. So now we have millions and millions of more of internet connected to devices out there, little PCs that we have to manage and be worried about. So that's one, it's just the scalability, the scale factor of information security. The second one is that mobile devices not only have very sensitive data, but they're moving around and they're susceptible far more than anything else to physical theft. It was harder to steal the desktop of an employee's machine or out of a data center, but now little mobile devices, they get stolen all the time. Not so much for the data, a lot of times it's just a crime of opportunity, but the threat is there. So we have to figure out data security with all these devices that are moving around all over the world. The public, where you're talking about individuals or corporations, I think they absolutely need to know the security posture of their systems and those they do business with. 100%. The more information, the more real information that you give to people, the more wise security decisions that they can make. Clearly, some companies are doing better than others, relative to the security posture, and it's not always readily apparent given the headlines. Just because a company gets in the headlines doesn't mean they're necessarily doing better or worse than another company who hasn't. Those other companies maybe the bad guys just were better at hiding their tracks or didn't want to expose that fact. What companies can do to leverage their security investments is publish what they're doing, publish their results, publish their security controls, and give people a sense of confidence that those that they're doing business with are doing the best they possibly can. Information security successes and failures should be shared equally. A lot of times it's difficult to share failures, but we can learn from both, and for very different reasons. Sharing security successes helps your customers or your business partners with an emphasis of trust. You should do business with us because look at all these things that we're doing to protect your data and to protect our systems. These are very, very important buying decisions. We should also share the security failures because we would very much like to know what controls are working and which are not, what the bad guys are trying and what they're after. From that information, we can improve our security systems collectively as a community. Compliance and the need for compliance originates from very well-meaning intentions. We want these events not to happen. So we have a bunch of security incidents that occur, some that are really, really bad. So there's a call for compliance. How do we make these things not happen again? So a bunch of smart people get in a room and they create this big list of security controls. And if everybody did these controls, then those events would never happen again. And that's true. It's true to the point when the bad guy moves on and they go, we need to move around these controls. But because when you're talking about cybercrime and making billions of dollars, when you're talking about nation states and you're talking about intellectual property, the bad guys will move around the blocks. So what happens over time as the bad guys shift their strategies, the security controls from last year become less and less relevant and less effective. The second issue with compliance moving forward is that compliance controls get bigger over time. The security industry has this big rock, these security controls that we push uphill, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year. And nothing that we do before, no matter how useless it is, we can never stop doing or buying because compliance mandates it. So the security budgets must get bigger and the business resists that. So that's one of the large challenges out there related to compliance. So I think the way companies should invest in security should be directly related to how the business invests in IT. If the business invests the bulk of their IT dollars building up their network infrastructure, then it's only reasonable to assume that they should spend the bulk of their security dollars protecting those network-based assets. If, however, the other hand, like many companies do, they spend the bulk of their IT dollars building software that they put on these networks, that's where they spend most of their money, then it would only be reasonable at the same time to spend the bulk of their security dollars spent on software security to protect that asset. There's two very interesting things that occur with the move to the cloud. The first one is that the network layer becomes abstracted. There is no network. They're just services and applications on top of this abstracted network layer. What that does is companies who are comfortable and used to buying network and host-based security controls can't fit them in to a cloud-based environment. Where do you put your firewall on the network where there is no network? The second phenomenon related to the cloud is that the infrastructure is no longer your own. It's no longer within your control. It's a contractual relationship. And so the concern becomes one of business continuity. What happens when the security vendor, let's say, goes out of business? What is your plan after that? So the concerns with the cloud are security, yes, but a lot more often than that, it's in the realm of business continuity, which relates to also to security, but not solely. Hack yourself first. It's a new name for a well-established concept. In the security industry, we usually call it vulnerability assessment or penetration testing, but for the most part, it's rather niche. What we really need to do to counteract the bad guys is scale it out. We need to hack ourselves first across all websites and all networks and all systems at all times, because that's exactly what the bad guys are doing. They're not just targeting the most valuable and the most, recognizable systems. They'll go after the secondary and tertiary systems and leapfrog in and get into their end goal. So we need to do everything all the time.